And for more on the EU summit and how Europe plans to address the refugee crisis, we're joined by Brian Beary. He's a contributor and editorial board member for European Affairs, an online magazine published by the European Institute. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, for weeks now, we've seen and heard a lot of talking, a lot of meetings among EU members, but it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of cooperative action. Are you optimistic that we can see something happen among the EU?
I'd be a little pessimistic, to be honest. We've seen in the last few weeks that there are very deep fault lines within the European Union itself, which is supposed to be unified on asylum policy and immigration policy. Specifically, we see a big West-East divide with Eastern European countries very unfamiliar with dealing with mass influxes of refugees and very resistant to what's referred to as burden-sharing proposals, where you try to evenly spread out the refugees among the EU member states. Germany and Austria, which are taking the bulk of the refugee influxes, are trying to persuade them, but it looks as if there's still a lot of persuading to be done.
What do you make of some of the proposals set forth today, getting Turkey involved? Do you think we could see something there in return to some of what Turkey is asking for? Easier travel, visa-free travel, money being offered. What do you think of what was said today?
This is a very interesting development, first of all, because it's worth noting that Turkey's relations with the EU have been bad and have been deteriorating for many years for various reasons, one of which being Turkey's worsening human rights record, which is in turn linked to its failure to join the EU. So all of a sudden they have a common cause, and Turkey is saying, Turkish leader Erdogan is saying very clearly, okay, we can help you, but you need to help us. My personal view is that there's going to be a lot of reluctance to give something like visa liberalization. Remember, there's 75 million people living in Turkey, and to give them visa-free access to the EU, I imagine will be a very big step. On the other hand, money for helping them deal with refugees, shore up their border controls, that might be something where the EU member states would be more willing. But it's very clear that President Mr. Erdogan has been very strategic and has gone very boldly to try and change the relationship that exists with his EU partners.
Could that be a realistic situation, a resolution to stemming some of what we've been seeing in the last several months?
A stemming meaning?
The flow. You know, Turkey is such a transit point also for refugees.
Again, a personal viewpoint is very difficult. At the end of the day, refugees are flooding out of Syria because the country has completely fallen apart. And millions of people are walking by foot from Turkey. They're getting on dinghy boats to Greece. They're walking all the way up a continent to get to the places where they want. About 1 million of them expected in EU borders within the EU this year alone. I think what can happen is some kind of orderly process for dealing with these people, but any notion that you're suddenly going to stop the influx, for me, is just wishful thinking.
Would you say nothing has worked so far, nothing that has been proposed, nothing is working, and will we see another set of challenges as we approach winter here?
I would say nothing is working in the sense of if your goal is to stop the influx. However, it's worth noting Germany, among others, views the refugee as also a bit of an economic opportunity because it would welcome some of these young workers as it has a skills shortage. I think what it would really like is just something to work in a more orderly process to redistribute these refugees more evenly across the continent.
That's not getting a lot of favorable views as well. Brian Beary, thank you so much for any insight. We appreciate your time.